Welcome to our deep dive into Psalms 120 through 130.
Oh, okay.
These are, known as the Songs of Ascents,
Uh-huh.
possibly sung by pilgrims
Yeah.
on their way to Jerusalem.
Interesting.
Imagine yourself on a journey, not necessarily a physical one, but maybe a journey through a challenge or a period of personal growth. These Psalms can be like guideposts, offering comfort and strength along the way.
And what's so powerful about Psalms is that they're poetry, song, raw expressions of the human experience poured out before God.
Yeah.
That's why they resonate so deeply with us even today.
Let's jump right in with Psalm 120.
Okay.
The first verse paints a vivid picture.
Okay.
In my distress, I cried unto the Lord, and he heard me.
Hmm.
It's a cry so raw and desperate. It's almost like you can hear the echoes of those ancient pilgrims crying out for deliverance.
It's a cry that transcends time and culture, because we've all experienced those moments of distress, those times when we feel surrounded by negativity.
Right.
And this psalm reminds us that even in those darkest moments, we can turn to a higher power for support.
It's interesting because sometimes just the act of voicing our pain, of acknowledging our struggles, can be incredibly cathartic. It's like we're releasing that burden, even if the solution isn't immediately clear.
That's a great point. Sometimes simply being heard is enough to provide a sense of relief, a glimmer of hope.
Yeah.
Now, speaking of hope, let's move on to Psalm 121, where the psalmist takes us on a visual journey. I lift up mine eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help.
I love that imagery. It makes me think about where we look for help in the 21st century. We often place our trust in our careers, money, technology. But this song challenges us to look beyond those earthly things. It's like those hills represent something bigger, something more enduring.
Exactly. It's a reminder that true strength comes from a source outside of ourselves. Think about all the things we rely on in modern life, our phones, the internet, our intricate systems, and how easily those things can fail us. This song calls us back to a more fundamental source of support.
And that's where verse 3 comes in. He will not suffer thy foot to be moved. It's like a promise of unwavering support, especially when we feel like everything else is shifting beneath us.
Precisely. Now notice the shift in tone as we move into Psalm 122. It's less about individual struggle and more about the collective joy of coming together, particularly for worship or a shared purpose.
The opening lines just radiate that feeling of excitement.
Yeah.
I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord.
It makes you think about the power of shared experiences, how coming together with others can be so uplifting.
It's a primal human need, really, that yearning for connection, for belonging. Think about the power of pilgrimages throughout history, or even just gathering with friends and family for a meal or a celebration. Those shared experiences bind us together, offering a sense of comfort and belonging.
It makes that line about praying for the peace of Jerusalem even more intriguing. It's not just about a specific city. It's about cultivating peace within ourselves, within our communities, and ultimately in the world around us. That's a profound thought, and one that's especially relevant in today's world. It reminds us that peace isn't just the absence of conflict. It's an active state of being that requires intention and effort. Now, given our limited time, let's explore Psalms 123 through 129 thematically, rather than going verse by verse.
Perfect. So Psalm 123 is all about dependence on God. Unto thee lift I up mine eyes, O thou that dwellest in the heavens. It's like that feeling of a child looking to their parent for guidance and protection, that complete reliance on someone wiser and stronger.
What's fascinating about that imagery is the humility it implies. It's recognizing our need for something greater than ourselves, acknowledging that we're not self-sufficient.
Yeah.
And it's a theme that continues in Psalm 124.
Right. It's a psalm of gratitude for past deliverances. And it serves as a powerful reminder that God has brought us through challenges before, and he can do it again.
Yeah.
If that had not been the Lord who was on our side, then the waters would have overwhelmed us. It's like looking back on a perilous journey and realizing you wouldn't have made it without help.
That's an excellent way to put it. Remembering past victories can strengthen our faith and give us courage to face future trials. It's like building up a reservoir of resilience, knowing that we've weathered storms before and come out stronger on the other side.
Then we come to Psalm 125, which evokes a sense of security and protection. As the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so the Lord is round about his people. I imagine those pilgrims feeling a sense of safety as they approach Jerusalem, surrounded by those towering hills.
The Psalms are full of natural imagery like this. Mountains, rivers, valleys, they all become metaphors for God's presence and power. Here, those mountains represent a fortress, a place of refuge and security.
It makes me think about how we seek security today. Alarms, gated communities, insurance policies. This psalm challenges us to consider a different kind of security, one that comes from trusting in something beyond our own efforts.
You've hit on a crucial point. It's about recognizing that true security comes from aligning ourselves with God's will, not from surrounding ourselves with material possessions or worldly fortifications.
Now, Psalm 126 takes us on a different emotional journey. It's about restoration, turning sorrow into joy. When the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. It's that feeling of disbelief when something wonderful happens after a long period of hardship.
It's like emerging from a dark tunnel into the sunlight, blinking in disbelief at the sudden shift.
Yeah.
And this psalm reminds us that even in the midst of suffering, God is at work, bringing about restoration and renewal.
And it's not just about returning to how things were before. It's about experiencing something even better, something more beautiful and fulfilling. This psalm reminds me that sometimes going through those difficult seasons can actually lead us to a richer and more meaningful life.
That's a profound insight. It reminds us that even our most painful experiences can be redeemed, that they can ultimately serve a greater purpose.
Then we have Psalms 127 and 128, which seem to shift the focus towards family, work, and the blessings of a life well lived. Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. It's about aligning our efforts with God's purpose and finding true fulfillment in that alignment.
It's important not to interpret these songs through the lens of a prosperity gospel, as if material wealth and worldly success are the ultimate goal. Rather, they're about recognizing that when we live in harmony with God's will, our lives tend to flourish in a holistic sense.
And finally, we come to Psalm 129, which deals with perseverance and overcoming oppression. Many a time have they afflicted me from my youth, but they have not prevailed against me. It speaks to the enduring spirit within us, that ability to rise above challenges, to keep going even when things feel hopeless.
This psalm is particularly powerful for those who have endured long-term hardship, who have faced injustice or discrimination. It's a reminder that even when the odds seem stacked against us, faith can sustain us, hope can fuel us, and ultimately love will triumph over hate.
It's a powerful message of resilience and hope, reminding us that no matter what we face, we're not alone in the struggle. Now, let's move on to Psalm 130, the final psalm in this collection. It's a psalm that dives deep into the depths of despair, but also offers a glimmer of hope. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord.
This line is so raw, so visceral. It's like a punch to the gut. It captures that feeling of being utterly overwhelmed, lost in a sea of despair. But it also speaks to the power of turning to a higher power in those moments of utter helplessness.
I think it's a feeling a lot of people can relate to, especially in today's world, where we're bombarded with so much negativity and uncertainty.
Absolutely. We live in a culture that often encourages us to suppress our emotions, to put on a brave face and pretend everything's okay. But this psalm gives us permission to be real, to acknowledge our pain, and to cry out for help.
And there's something incredibly liberating about that, isn't there? It's like releasing those pent-up emotions and surrendering to something bigger than ourselves.
It's a profound act of humility, recognizing that we don't have all the answers, that we need help to navigate the complexities of life. And this psalm assures us that even when we feel lost and alone, God is listening, God is present, and God is offering a path towards healing and wholeness.
That's such a comforting thought. It's like a lifeline in the midst of a storm, reminding us that even in our darkest moments, we're not alone.
And it's not just about finding comfort in the present moment. This psalm also points us towards hope for the future. I wait for the Lord, my soul doth wait, and in his word do I hope.
This is a really important point because it highlights two key things: patience and faith. It's about trusting that even when we can't see the way forward, God is guiding our steps, and that even in the darkest night, a new dawn is coming.
That idea of waiting, of trusting in God's timing, can be so challenging, especially in our fast-paced world, where we're used to instant gratification.
It's true. We want solutions now, answers immediately. But these psalms remind us that sometimes the waiting itself is part of the process.
It's in those quiet moments of waiting, of surrendering control, that we often experience the most profound growth and transformation.
And it makes me think about the pilgrims who sang these psalms. Their journey to Jerusalem wasn't a quick trip. It was a long and arduous journey, filled with challenges and uncertainties.
Yes. And that physical journey becomes a powerful metaphor For our own spiritual journeys, there are times when we feel like we're slogging through a desert, parched for meaning and direction.
And it's in those moments that we need to remember the message of Psalm 121, to lift our eyes to the hills, to shift our perspective, and seek a source of strength beyond our immediate circumstances.
It's like those times when you're feeling overwhelmed by stress or anxiety, and you step outside and look up at the vastness of the sky. Suddenly your problems feel a little bit smaller.
It's a reminder that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves, and that can be incredibly comforting.
It's about tapping into that sense of awe and wonder, recognizing that there's a force at work in the universe that's far greater than our limited human understanding.
And I think that sense of awe is also present in Psalm 122, which celebrates the joy of coming together.
Especially for worship.
Yes, that psalm captures the energy and excitement of the pilgrims as they approach Jerusalem, knowing they're about to join a community of like-minded believers.
I was glad when they said unto me, "Let us go into the house of the Lord." You can almost hear the cheers, the laughter, the sense of anticipation in those words.
And it makes me wonder, where do we find that sense of communal joy today? Is it in our places of worship, in our families, in our communities?
It's interesting because I think it can be found in so many different places. It could be at a concert, a sporting event, a protest, or even just gathering with friends for a meal.
You're right, it's about those moments when we feel connected to something larger than ourselves, when we experience a sense of shared purpose and belonging.
And I think that ties back to the idea of praying for the peace of Jerusalem. It's not just about a specific city, it's about cultivating peace within ourselves, within our communities, and ultimately in the world around us. It's a call to action, a reminder that peace isn't just something that happens. It's something we actively cultivate through our choices, our actions, and our interactions with others.
But what about those times when peace feels elusive? When we're struggling with personal challenges, when we're facing difficult circumstances, when we feel lost and alone?
Those are the times when we need to remember the message of Psalms like 123 and 124, to acknowledge our dependence on God, to trust in His deliverance, and to draw strength from the knowledge that He's brought us through challenges before.
If it had not been the Lord who was on our side, then the waters would have overwhelmed us. Those words from Psalm 124 are so powerful. They remind us that even when we feel like we're drowning in our struggles, there's a force at work that's capable of rescuing us.
It's about recognizing that we're not alone in our struggles, that there's a source of strength and support available to us, even when we can't see it.
And then we have Psalm 125, which offers this beautiful image of security and protection. As the mountains are round about Jerusalem, so the Lord is round about His people.
It's like those mountains represent a fortress, a shield protecting the city from harm. It's a powerful metaphor for the way God surrounds us with His love and care.
It makes me think about how we try to create security in our own lives through material possessions, through status, through our accomplishments.
And yet this psalm reminds us that true security comes from surrendering to something bigger than ourselves, from trusting in a power that's greater than our own limited understanding.
It's about letting go of the illusion of control and embracing the mystery of faith.
And that's where Psalm 126 comes in, with its message of restoration and renewal. When the Lord turned again the captivity of Zion, we were like them that dream. It's that feeling of disbelief. When something wonderful happens after a long period of hardship, like waking up from a nightmare into a beautiful reality.
I love that analogy. It's like we've been living in a dark tunnel for so long, and then suddenly we're bathed in sunlight.
It's a reminder that even in the midst of our suffering, God is at work, bringing about healing and transformation. He's orchestrating a symphony of redemption, even when we can't hear the music.
And sometimes that redemption comes in unexpected ways. It might not look like what we expected, but it's always for our ultimate good.
It's about trusting in the process, even when we don't understand it, knowing that God's ways are higher than our ways.
And speaking of trusting the process, Psalms 127 and 128 seem to focus on the importance of aligning our efforts with God's will, especially in the areas of family and work.
Yes. These Psalms remind us that when we seek God's guidance in our daily lives, when we strive to live in harmony with His purpose, our efforts are blessed and our lives tend to flourish.
Except the Lord build the house, they labor in vain that build it. That line from Psalm 127 is a powerful reminder that true success isn't about our own striving or ambition, but about surrendering to a higher purpose.
It's about recognizing that we're not the master builders of our own lives, that there's a divine architect at work, shaping and molding us according to His perfect plan.
And that can be a humbling realization, but also a liberating one.
It frees us from the burden of trying to control everything, and it allows us to rest in the knowledge that we're part of something much bigger than ourselves.
And finally, we come to Psalm 129, which speaks to the power of perseverance, of overcoming oppression, of enduring hardship with faith and resilience. Many a time have they afflicted me from my youth, but they have not prevailed against me. These words are like a battle cry for anyone who's ever felt beaten down by life's challenges.
It's a reminder that no matter what we face, we have the strength within us to rise above, to keep going, to never give up hope.
It's about tapping into that indomitable spirit that resides within each of us, that spark of divinity that can never be extinguished.
It's the same spirit that sustained those pilgrims on their long journey to Jerusalem, the same spirit that empowers us to face our own challenges with courage and determination.
And ultimately, it's the same spirit that leads us to the final psalm in this collection, Psalm 130, where we find ourselves standing on the precipice of despair, yet clinging to a glimmer of hope. Out of the depths have I cried unto thee, O Lord. The words are so raw, so vulnerable, they strip away all pretense and reveal the nakedness of the human soul.
It's a cry that echoes through the centuries, a cry that resonates with anyone who's ever felt lost, broken, or overwhelmed by life's challenges.
And yet, even in those depths of despair, there's a glimmer of light, a whisper of hope. I wait for the Lord, my soul doth wait, and in his word do I hope.
It's a reminder that even when we can't see the way forward, even when we feel surrounded by darkness, there's a source of light and love that's always available to us.
It's about cultivating that inner knowing, that deep-seated faith that whispers, even though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. It's amazing how these psalms can take us on such an emotional roller coaster. We've journeyed from those initial cries of distress and pleas for deliverance to this place of quiet trust and unwavering hope.
It's like we've climbed a mountain, starting in the shadowy valleys of despair, and finally emerging onto a sunlit peak with a breathtaking view. And I think what's most remarkable is that these psalms offer a path, a way up that mountain, for anyone who's willing to make the climb.
That imagery really brings it to life. And it makes me think about those pilgrims. Their physical journey mirroring our own internal struggles. They were literally climbing mountains, facing physical challenges. And yet their songs echo the emotional and spiritual mountains we all face.
Exactly. It's a reminder that no matter how different our lives may seem from those ancient pilgrims, we're all on a journey towards something greater than ourselves. And these psalms offer guidance and inspiration for every step along the way.
I keep coming back to that line from Psalm 121. I lift up mine eyes unto the hills. It's such a simple phrase, yet it holds so much depth.
It's about shifting our perspective, recognizing that there's a source of strength and wisdom that transcends our limited human understanding. In a world that's constantly bombarding us with information and distractions, it's a call to pause, to look beyond the immediate, and to connect with something larger than ourselves.
It's like taking a step back from the chaos of life and remembering what truly matters, finding that stillness amidst the storm.
And I think that's a thread that runs through all of these psalms. They remind us that even in the midst of our struggles, even when we feel lost and alone, there's a source of peace and strength that's always available to us.
It's like we're being invited to tap into a wellspring of resilience, to draw on a reservoir of hope that's been replenished by generations of seekers and believers.
And that resilience isn't about denying our emotions or pretending everything is okay. It's about acknowledging our struggles, embracing our vulnerability, and then choosing to move forward with faith and determination. It's about remembering that even in the darkest night, a new dawn is coming.
That's a beautiful way to put it. It's not about ignoring the darkness, but about holding on to the belief that light will eventually break through.
And those moments of breakthrough, those glimpses of light, often come when we least expect them. It might be a kind word from a stranger, a moment of unexpected beauty in nature, a sudden surge of inspiration. These psalms remind us to be open to those moments of grace, to cultivate an attitude of gratitude even amidst our challenges.
Because it's often in those small moments, those seemingly insignificant details, that we find the strength to keep going.
Exactly. It's about training ourselves to notice the good, to appreciate the beauty that surrounds us, even when life feels difficult. And that's a practice that can transform our entire outlook on life.
These psalms are like a toolkit for navigating life's complexities. They offer guidance for dealing with everything, from fear and anxiety to grief and loss, from celebrating victories to finding hope in the midst of despair.
And just like any toolkit, The key is knowing which tools to use and when. Sometimes we need a hammer to break through our defenses. Other times we need a gentle hand to soothe our wounds. These psalms offer a variety